What is up guys, today we're looking at patch 4.18 and there are a couple of tweaks here that are really going to change the picks and bans you're seeing right now. Now you can see the changes on screen and the big ones, the ones that are going to make the difference here really are the nerfs to Yasuo, Kha'Zix, Tristana and Lucian. Like last time, at the end of this video I'll do a what about section which is really looking at the result of these changes going forward and my predictions. So let's make a start really quickly with Akali. Now Akali is good in this meta right now, not many people are playing her, but she's a very effective assassin, especially at lower elos where you can snowball, and this change is really going to just make it easier to actually kill her and to shut her down. Right now when she gets fed, she's insanely hard to kill because she can spell vamp so much of her damage back, and a lot of that is also how tanky she is and how hard she is to kill within her shroud, so this change is going to be making her more agile but less tanky. This Anivia change is something that, like, normally I don't cover these kind of tweaks in these videos because I don't think they're worth the mentioning. But from someone who's played a lot of Anivia, especially when I was learning her, the stun was the hardest part to get. And I think unlocking her stun and her kill potential with the double damage is something that is really important when playing Anivia. So I decided to actually mention her this time because I think that with this change, it's going to make the stun actually easier to hit for newer players learning her, and I think she's going to become a little bit more popular. Let's move on to Azir, and I'm trying to keep a straight face when talking about this guy because holy crap, he's just so buggy, it's unreal. Nevertheless though, there is a buff in here. They're raising his base attack damage and base attack speed, which obviously makes his kind of soldiers a little bit stronger as well. They have done a few bug fixes as well. I mean, a few. It's not like they've had a bug fix to every single passive, Q, W, E and R or anything like that. It's really hard to break down any changes to Azir because he's not really working as intended. So when they get him to work properly, then I'll go back and say whether he's a good or bad champion. Now for those of you who followed me for a while, this next change, you know, Ezreal, I love playing Ezreal, and this Q change has already apparently been happening, so I won't focus on that. But the passive is a nice little touch, but it's not really going to bring him back to the top. Now the passive is underrated, people don't really think about it, but in teamfights it's actually pretty effective because you should use your ultimate at the start of the teamfight to get your max passive stacks, and then you want to be keeping it at max for the entire fight. The attack speed that you get with it is going to be good for just auto attacking obviously the front line. It helps you deal with tanks a little bit better. The extra second is only really going to be effective here for when you're chasing someone and you're trying to E forward and Q them. Next on the list is another champion I actually really enjoy playing. I love playing Gangplank. I have like every skin for him and I used to play him a lot in season 2. It's really cool to see him getting some love, but this isn't going to be doing much for him in the current meta. It makes his ultimate more effective, but it's not really going to bring him up or anything like that. I mean, we've all had that game probably where Gangplank solo carries it by getting ahead in his lane and buying like a Shiv and a Triforce and Infinity Edge and just one-shotting people. That's really cool, but his ultimate isn't really the core part of his kit right now anyway. Okay, so here's the first big change and the one I'm going to talk about a little bit, and that's Kha'Zix and his poke from his W that's getting nerfed and reduced down. Now Kha'Zix is always supposed to be an assassin. He's not someone who's supposed to poke and poke and poke and then finally jump in to secure the kill. He's supposed to be that high risk jungler who jumps in and then you try and kill someone and sometimes it works and you kill them and you jump out again, and sometimes it doesn't and you just die. This kind of W playstyle was way too safe. You saw it in Worlds a lot with people just sitting on the side and poking and just reducing the health bars down. Now don't get me wrong, there is still some potential to do that. I mean, it's very effective against low health targets, but it's not going to be very good late game anymore. This isn't just because of the reduced damage, but if you think about it, enemies buy defense, they buy more health, and so late game everyone is tankier, even the squishy targets, and so the W actually isn't going to be doing even much damage to them anymore. So these next two changes I'm going to kind of group together a little bit more because they're the top two ADs right now and they're both getting nerfs. Now Lucian's had his mana cost put back onto his E at early ranks and then obviously removed at later ranks, which is going to help it, or it's going to hinder his lane phase and help you to actually lane against him. The reason he was so good and so hard to lane against when they removed the mana cost was because he can E in double shot, then Q double shot, and that's like not taking much mana at all, and his E is on a really low cooldown as well. When they're adding this mana cost, the 40, it doesn't sound like much, but if you're trying to add 40 mana to that trade every time you trade, it's actually going to add up and mean you have to be more careful with your mana now. This Tristana change is actually bigger than Lucian, and in many people's eyes Tristana was the number one, but I think she was pretty even, but I guess especially at lower elo where Tristana could dominate her lane and snowball, she was really effective. Now the two things here, they're reducing the attack speed per level, which is obviously going to hit her late game pretty hard, but they're also, with the Q, they're making it so that she has more of a weakness, so she's more dependent on her actual Q. So the duration is cut short by 2 seconds, which means that there's a bigger window of opportunity where she is weaker, but because her attack speed per level is going down, it means that the Q, the rapid fire, is even more important. You are actually seeing that they've increased the attack speed, the bonus attack speed on the Q to kind of make up for the attack speed per level, and it's just meaning that for these 5 seconds where the Q is active, she is still going to be a powerhouse, but when that runs out, she's not really going to be as effective. It actually raises a really interesting thing about Corki as well, but that's something I'm going to do at the end about the what about section, and right now I'm just going to cover the last change, which was to Yasuo. Now this base health change is actually really harsh. Okay, base movement speed, you can kind of live with that, it does hurt him, but it doesn't hurt him anywhere near as much as taking that 50 off of his base health. Now to put this into perspective for you, here is Lux's wiki page. That is her base health, right? Lux is considered one of the squishiest champions in the game at early levels, and someone that you can actually kill over and over because she is so weak. Now this is Yasuo's, and he has 40 more, and that is it. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. 40 extra health is not much in comparison. And Yasuo is melee. He's someone who is bullied anyway and even easier to punish early. So this is actually going to really hurt him. Now saying all that, it does kind of make sense. Yasuo is supposed to be this hyper carry champion, not an early game champion, and so he really should be punished early, much like someone like Vayne, who is kind of not really that strong in lane, but very effective late game. The problem is going to come that Yasuo could get shut down very easily in lane now, so especially if you're not as strong with him, you are really going to struggle. So that wraps up the changes, but let's just talk about Corki in this what about section that I do. Now Corki was considered number 3 by a lot of people, including myself, because he's a very strong lane bully and he transitioned into mid game and even into late game very well. He does struggle against tanks, which is why he was not as good as Lucian or someone like Tristana, and why they were above him. But now with those two being reduced in power, it means that Corki is going to be, well, really strong. He's probably going to be on an equal level with those guys. Now the reason for this really is because Lucian's lane bully potential has gone down, which means that Corki, who is already a good lane bully and who could already trade with Lucian, is just going to overtake him and be even stronger. Now Corki's one downside, and the reason I don't think he's above the other two, is because his late game isn't that effective. His mid game is very strong and is probably stronger than Lucian's and Tristana's, but when you get to that very late game, which solo queue is tending to get to now, he is going to fall off and the other two are going to overtake him. Well, that wraps up this video and the breakdown for patch 4.18, and please let me know what you think, what changes you like and what you don't, and I'll try and answer some questions in the comments as well. I'm sorry I haven't been posting as much lately, but that will change and I will be getting back into it. I have a couple of montages on the way. I'm really enjoying editing right now, which is kind of why it's slowed down a little, but that's all from me for this time, so I'll catch you in my next video.